This is one of the most terrifying materials in the Forged in Fire competition. Nightmare Elevator Steel Cable. Not only is this material extremely difficult to work with, but the knives forged from it have an absurdly high strength. So for this competition, the production team deliberately obtained a steel cable and asked the contestants to use it as the material to forge a distinctive short blade within 3 hours, after which high-intensity tests would be conducted. As soon as the host gave the order, the 3-hour competition timer started. Faced with such a thick piece of steel, it was impossible for a single person to handle it alone. So the contestants unanimously decided to work together to dismantle one cable, and then each cut the length of steel cable they needed. After getting the steel, Robert first welded the two ends of the steel cable to prevent it from cracking during subsequent heating. After it was fully heated, he used brute force to start wildly swinging it, hoping to remove the surface impurities in this way. Next, he used a vise to clamp the steel cable tightly and began to twist it with high intensity. The result was very good. Steven's operation was even wilder and bolder. He directly used a large fire to burn the steel cable to try to remove the internal impurities, but unexpectedly, as soon as he started to twist it, the steel cable cracked all the way through. The judges couldn't believe it and were all worried for him. Seeing that the steel could no longer be processed, Steven had no choice but to throw it away and start over. This time he decided to showcase his skills with the Damascus forging technique using a canister. In comparison, Paul was more cautious. When heating the steel cable, he even took out a thermometer to check the temperature inside the furnace. This could help him forge better and reduce the risk of failure. After the steel billet was fully heated, he used a brush to remove the surface impurities. Then he also started to twist it vigorously. The welding of the steel billet was perfect. After twisting his steel billet, Ron decided to cut off the loose ends at both ends, leaving only the successfully twisted steel in the middle. For forging the knife, Steven, who had started over, although he was behind the other contestants in terms of progress, he remained very calm. He put the small pieces of cut steel cable into a canister, poured steel powder into it to fill the gaps, and then put it into the furnace to start forging. 1 hour had passed. Paul's steel billet had fused very well. After hammering to remove the surface impurities, he sprinkled a large amount of flux and continued forging to ensure there were no mistakes. Robert made the fastest progress. At this point, he had already completed the fusion of the steel billet and began to stretch and lengthen it under the action of a power hammer. Then he folded the steel billet, preparing to do hand stacking Damascus to increase its strength. However, due to using too much force, he actually hammered the hammer right out of his hand. This fierce operation also shocked the judges. In comparison, Ron, on the other side, didn't have such smooth progress. His steel billet had fused very poorly. The cracks in the steel cable were clearly visible. He tried to heat it again for welding, but it still didn't work. Now he could only place his hopes on the grinder. Half of the time had passed, while the others were forging their knives in a hurry. Only Steven was still waiting for the Damascus canister to heat up. Although on the surface he looked very calm, in fact his heart was completely panicked.